boys and girls. Ho, ho, ho. It's so good to see you out there. Santa's just looking through the naughty and nice list, making sure all you boys and girls are behaving, listening to Mommy and Daddy, so Santa Claus will bring you something nice this year. I know things have been a little different this year, but we'll get through this, and I'll be seeing you guys around. Be good, so I bring you something nice on Christmas Eve, so you wake up to wonderful gifts under your tree. Ho, ho, ho. So what Santa thought he would do is read you guys a story, and it's called The Polar Express, and it's about a little boy who comes and visits me at the North Pole. What do you think, boys and girls? Here we go. The Polar Express. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did not hear the sounds, not the ringing of the bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and I saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. And there's the train. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, looked at the time. He looked up at me at the window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and went out the door. All aboard, the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. He said, "Are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies. We drank hot cocoa, as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. That sounds good. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests, where white-tailed rabbits hid from the train's sound as we ran through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seems as if we were touching the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran, over peaks and through valleys, like a car on a roller coaster. And you can see the Polar Express in the mountains. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren of desert ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole, it was a huge city standing alone on top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. "They are gathering at the center of town," the conductor said. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you, children that are on this train." "Look," shouted one of the children, "the elves." Outside, we saw hundreds of elves as our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole. We slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no farther, we stopped and the conductor let us out. And that's a picture of the center of the North Pole with everyone gathered. We pressed through the cloud to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing their silver bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I had ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointing to me said, "Let's have this fellow here." The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now what would you like for Christmas?" And there's Santa and his elves and sleigh. I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine, but the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked Santa, he smiled. Then he gave me a hug, and he told an elf, "Cut a bell from the reindeer's harness." The elf tossed the bell up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, "The first gift of Christmas." And there he is holding that bell. A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down off the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names, cracked the whip. His team charged forward and climbed up into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. And there's Santa flying. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt in my pocket was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry and look outside for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. And there's the little boy looking sad that he lost the bell. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas," he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. And there's the little boy waving goodbye to the Polar Express. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. Santa Claus." I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I had shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as the years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who truly believe in Santa Claus. And there's the bell. Well, boys and girls, I want to thank you for letting me read this book to you. And I want you all to be behaved and listen and do good things to others. And if you want on Christmas Eve, you can leave me some milk and cookies. And remember, be good. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho!